Is the Stanley Cup really what it's only all about? I want to say no, but kind of.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Tuesday, June 18th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 with any winning $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. And before we get started, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years now. Worked full-time for 5 years as a hockey news editor at The Score, and I've been hosting this podcast since 2019. A year in which the Boston Bruins advanced to the Stanley Cup final, an award trophy that could be handed out tonight as the Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers play Game 5 of their championship series. And I got to thinking about Oilers-Panthers. Over the weekend, we celebrated the 13th anniversary of the 2011 Stanley Cup championship for the Boston Bruins. We also got a reminder that next season is just around the corner. There was a preseason schedule that was released. We'll talk about that later on in the show. What is this really all about? Why do we invest so much time in the Stanley Cup, in the hockey world? Is it just about winning the Stanley Cup? Just about watching the Boston Bruins win the Stanley Cup? Now, not to reveal my age, which is inappropriate. Not really. But I have been alive for 42 Stanley Cup championships. Perhaps 43 will happen tonight. In that time, the Bruins have won once. So once in 42 Stanley Cup championships that I've seen in my life. That is a 2.38 success rate in my hockey-loving life. I love the Boston Bruins. I have since I was a little kid back in the 80s. They've won it once. They made the finals several other times, but they've only won it once. Now, I'm not a huge math guy, but 100% minus 2.38, 97.62% of the time, I have been disappointed with this sport. If that's what it's all about. If it's just about winning the Stanley Cup, I've been disappointed in life, my hockey-loving life, 97.62% of the time. Was that 2.38% the highlight of my hockey-loving life? Absolutely. But the old adage, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. There's so much to love about this game, the preseason games, the regular season schedule, player movement, the people who come in and out of your life as a result. That all is factored into it. And I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest here. We are not personally tied to these teams. This isn't about, as much as it is a shared experience and there's so much joy. The Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship last night. Congratulations to the city of Boston, to all Celtics fans out there. There's a communal thing that happens there where we all come together, celebrate, enjoy the parade, high-fiving strangers, hugging people, enjoying some adult beverages in celebration. It's all part of the package. And that's just that one event that happens every time we watch a game with someone else, every time we celebrate a goal that's scored by our favorite Bruin. That's all part of the experience, from rookie camp all the way to the Stanley Cup finals, the NHL draft, player trades, signings, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, it's these guys whose lives are most affected by it. I kind of thought about it as I went to see Inside Out over the weekend. Inside Out 2, amazing sequel, beautiful movie. I cried, I laughed. It was well worth seeing. Chances are to win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars next year. But do people attend movies and they only enjoy the ones that win the Oscars? Or do we like to go to the movies just to be entertained, for that break from everyday life, to get into that experience of going in the theater, eating that popcorn, drinking that fountain pop? It's not just the top movies that we care about. It's all of them, even the ones that maybe aren't so great, but it's just the experience. It's the same thing with hockey. Yes, it's best to enjoy a Stanley Cup winning team, and we've seen that recently. The 2011 team, the heartbreak of 2013, 2019, going back to the early 90s, those losses to better teams in the Edmonton Oilers, the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's all part of my experience. It's all what informs me as a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. And again, if I just liked, loved, followed this team because of the pursuit of the Stanley Cup, almost 98% of the time, I'm disappointed. I end up underwhelmed with this hockey team. But that's not what it is all about. We love to see the Stanley Cup. We want them to win each and every year. Those times they got so close and it didn't happen. Even this year, seeing the Bruins lose to the Panthers, probably the team that gave them the biggest and best fight in this run so far, up until that 8-1 game the other night. We think about what could have been if the Bruins had beaten the Panthers. Could they have gotten past the Rangers? Could they have taken advantage of the Oilers getting off to a slow start in the finals? We'll never know. But the fact that they didn't win this year does not change the fact that I love this team. I'm excited about what's next. The page will soon be turned on 2023-24. We're going to head into the NHL draft, player movement, and in preseason training camp for next year. And it's going to feel fresh and new and exciting. And that's just how hockey seasons cycle out. Your team loses more often than not, exponentially more often than not. But we come back and we keep talking about this team because that's what we love. And that's what we do here on Locked On Bruins, your team every day. Coming up, we're going to take a look at that preseason schedule that was released, and we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. FanDuel, summertime means baseball, and you can bet on every pitch on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. All you have to do is create an account on FanDuel, download the app, and put down a $5 bet. If you hit, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Tonight, the Boston Red Sox continue their series up here in Toronto. The over-under is set at 7.5. Blue Jays bats not swinging very much. You might want to take the under there. Put $5 down. If you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets that you can use on everything from who's going to hit the next one out to strikeouts, etc. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, is America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today. All the latest news, opinions, and analysis from across the Locked On universe. I'm sure there'll be a ton of Celtics coverage on there today, some Oilers, Panthers stuff as well. Check it out on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, the NHL season could end tonight if the Florida Panthers are able to bounce the Edmonton Oilers in Game 5. I'm personally hoping for an Edmonton Oilers comeback, and you can go back and listen to the Why Root for the Panthers or Oilers episode of this podcast from before the series began. Once that's over, all attention will turn to the NHL draft, which takes place in 10 days. And then free agency, July 1st, training camp in September. And we have a 7-game schedule for the Boston Bruins when it comes to their preseason schedule. And it will begin with a visit, by the New York Rangers at TD Garden on Sunday, September 22nd. 5 p.m., TD Garden, Bruins hosting the New York Rangers. 2 days later, they will host the Washington Capitals, a 7 p.m. start. On Thursday, September 26th, they will travel to Madison Square Garden to take on those Rangers. A couple days later, they'll be in Philly to take on the Flyers. Tuesday, October 1st, they'll come back and host the Flyers. This is one that, very tempting to try to work in a road trip here. Thursday, October 3rd, they will be hosting the Los Angeles Kings at 7 p.m. at the Videotron Center in Quebec City. If you've never been to Quebec City, it is one of the best cities in North America. It's got that European feel. It's got the hotel right on overlooking the St. Lawrence River. It's got amazing restaurants. It's got stone paved roads. It's just beautiful. And it's well worth the trip if you're thinking of checking out one of these preseason games. Finally, Saturday, October 5th, the Bruins will visit the Washington Capitals to complete the preseason schedule. So, 7 games includes the previously announced preseason matchup against the Kings in Quebec City. The broadcast schedule and the complete regular season schedule will be released at a later date, but we have Boston Bruins hockey on the calendar to get excited about. Who will be in the lineup? What the team will look like at that point? Who knows? But preseason schedule, they'll be playing 4 different teams, 2 games against the Capitals, 2 games against the Rangers, 2 games against the Philadelphia Flyers, and then 1 against the Kings. This preseason schedule kind of highlights the fact that maybe the Bruins, there should be some realignment going on here. There's some games taking place against teams that are in close proximity to the Bruins, closer than going to Buffalo or coming up to Montreal. I mean, Quebec City's in there, that being the exception. When the Bruins were in the Metropolitan Division there during the COVID-19 season, perhaps that was a better reflection of where they are geographically. But, of course, we don't want them to be outside of a division with the Canadiens, the Sabres even, the Maple Leafs. Can do it with or without them. The Red Wings is a nice original 6 tie-in. So, whatever. Obviously, that's not on the table anytime soon. But interesting nonetheless. Who will be in the lineup? Who knows at this point, but one player we know likely will not be back is Oskar Steen, and we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. Our world today is pretty unpredictable, and a good life insurance plan can give your family a financial safety net to protect against some of those unknowns. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another. You can trust their guidance. There's thousands of 5-star reviews on Google from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the show notes to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. All right, I believe it was on Friday that I first saw this come across my my feed on X. Of course, did not record over the weekend. Yesterday, I was off accompanying my grade 8 kid to a field trip in Toronto, Ripley's Aquarium. Always a good time. But this is from the Hockey News International, Derek O'Brien from June 14th, which was, of course, Friday. The Boston Bruins not going to be re-signing Oskar Steen. All indications point to this, and his agent, Joakim Persson, validated this to a Swedish website, hockeynews.se. The 26-year-old Swedish forward would like to find another NHL team, but pro teams in Sweden and Switzerland are also viable options. He can become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. And in a quote attributed to this Swedish outlet, loosely translated through Google, the agent said, Boston has given us permission to already start talking to other teams to see what interest there is. Now, of course, that wouldn't be NHL teams, but international if there's interest there. They're in the middle of a conversation now. He will be coming to Vegas for the NHL draft on July 28th and 29th and continue to have conversations and dialogues with some NHL people. They'll see if there will be a continuation in the NHL or if it will be Sweden, Switzerland. 3 options available for Oskar Steen. He's had contact with teams in Europe, but the main focus remains North America for now. Swedish club Farstad BK has directly expressed interest in Steen. He's a native of Karlstad and played for Farstad from childhood, 186 SHL games with that club before heading to North America. Steen has played 60 NHL games for the Bruins, recording 4 goals, 4 assists. The rest of his time was spent in Providence after being drafted by the Boston Bruins back in what year was that that he was drafted? 2016, 165th overall, the 6th round. This past season in Providence, he had 12 goals, 4 assists for 16 points in 25 games. That's a pretty good scoring rate. The best scoring rate of his pro career. His previous high was 15 goals in 49 games. So to have 12 goals in 25 games, unfortunately, it just never translated to the NHL level. And that's something the Bruins sometimes struggle with, is integrating these younger players into the lineup. But if you're not highly touted or don't pop immediately, it's hard to gain traction. And, he has had flashes during his time with the Bruins. He has a very nice shot. He does have some upside, but he's not going to be like a top 6 winger for this team. If you can't stick in the third line, which would be probably his sweet spot as a scoring winger, then it's going to be tough to crack a spot. And the Bruins looking to allocate assets elsewhere, allocate money elsewhere, telling Oskar Steen that he will not be back in black and gold, much to the chagrin of Bruins fan Abby Pomeroy, who is probably the biggest Oskar Steen supporter out there. So that's one of their unrestricted free agents that they have made a decision on after allowing Reed Dick to re-enter the draft. We still have Kyle Kieser working our way up, Riley Walsh, Daniel Renouf, Anthony Richard in the minor league level, and then at the NHL level, Milan Lucic, bye-bye, Kevin Shattenkirk, Matt Grzelcyk, Derek Forbort on the back end, James Van Riemsdyk, Jason Megna, Patrick Maroon, Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk up front. These are all pending unrestricted free agents. We know for sure Lucic won't be back. Now we know Oskar Steen will not be back. Like I said earlier, 10 days until the NHL draft. Lots of time for Don Sweeney to begin to wheel and deal, to hopefully pull off a deal that will get them in the first round of this NHL draft. No first, second, or third currently. Hopefully they can pull off a deal to get into that round, and we can go from there. So that's the latest on the Boston Bruins. Farewell, Oskar Steen. Thanks for everything, and good luck moving forward. All right, that's it for today's episode, my friends. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen to Locked On Boston Bruins. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every day, and we'll be back here tomorrow to bring you all the latest on the black and gold here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care, friends. Oops.